thank you so much for making time and having this chat with me. It's really kind of you. And I'm sure this is a massive pick me up to everyone who's watching right now. But what's the lockdown been like for you?
Well, first of all, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for all the good news and the good news that you give every
My
single day.
pleasure, my pleasure.
How's it been for me? I think it's a time of, I mean, it's a crazy time for all of us. And it is bound to, you know, bring out a plethora of emotions in our heads. So, and I think that's okay. I think that's okay. You know, you can feel confusion, you can feel stressed, you can feel anxiety, you can feel loneliness, you can feel even guilt, you can feel, so many emotions. And I think the first thing we need to do, at least, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but this is what I've experienced myself, is that, I have to accept that these things are going to happen. I am going to feel these things. And then once you have the acceptance, then you can start feeling a little space around your mind, in your mind, and then you can maybe plan ahead and take control. And so I have been doing that, and I've been doing pretty well, actually.
So I've actually been talking a lot about two things, right? First of all, do not be afraid of asking for help or talking to someone. And by talking to someone, I actually mean either a counselor or a mental health professional or a psychiatrist, whoever you can get access to, because it's almost like going to a doctor. It is like going to a doctor, and you have to do it on a regular basis.
I think it starts at home. I think it starts at home. There's one thing that I did with my family. All the members in my family, I made a to-do list for all of them. And the number one point on that list is that if you are feeling low, if you're not feeling good about yourself, or because of any reason you're not feeling good, speak to us, speak to each other. Let's reach out, and it starts at home. You have to have that within, because you could be surrounded by your family in this lockdown, and still feel a need to reach out and still not be doing that, because you have assumed a stance of being in power or in control. But if you are feeling, before it's late, reach out.
Tell us more about this list, about the process you put in place to make sure everyone's okay at home.
Mostly they are to do with the rules and regulations that we need to put in place, which we have been provided by the authorities. Mostly it's to do with the social distancing, the hygiene, washing of hands, and all of that. Process in place to, how to get the groceries and how often, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, so that's something that I've done, for the family.
So I'm a big fan of making a list. I make lists for everything. I'm a list maker. There's a list for everything. But I do want to talk to you. You have your boys with you in lockdown, and that's a blessing, actually, to have family close by. But I've had a lot of conversations with parents about how to talk to your kids about what's going on without freaking them out. There's a lot of negative information. If the kids have access to Instagram or WhatsApp, there's a lot of fake information doing the rounds. There's concern also about, about grandparents. Are they safe? About my own parents, are they safe? That sort of thing. How did you talk to your kids about this? What did you tell them?
Well, first of all, I'm being a single parent. I'm feeling really fortunate that my kids are with me. Suzanne has been very gracious, and she has temporarily moved in with me. So, my kids have both their parents, and it's been great, actually. Well, I think the one thing that we should do, that I do, is that when they ask me a question, if I know the answer, I tell them the answer. When I don't know the answer, I say I don't know the answer to this, and then we sit and we research and we find what the facts are. Apart from that, I think it's again, it's a very, very good time. I speak to them openly. We have regular sporadic discussions on the pandemic, especially focused on stories that are inspiring. There are so many heroes out there. It's a great time for children to build that empathy and to if they have it, to lose the sense of entitlement. I know a lot of us have that. My parents made sure that I grew up without it, and I'm trying to do that same thing for my kids.
So do you recommend meditation? You recommend working out to just keep sort of, we all know that you have to be physically fit in order to be mentally sort of, in a good place.
Working out is a great way for me and for a lot of us who can access the good hormones at the end of the day, through that. And so working out is a great way for me to also bond with my kids, because we work out together. And you don't need anything but the floor. You just need the floor, and you're all set. Meditation is, I mean, you could be reading, even that's a kind of meditation, because it really, you need to switch the mind off from its recurrent thinking. It goes into a dysfunction. Also, it's really important to set aside a time for the news and for all of that, because it can really wreak havoc on your mind.
I think you did talk about, being part of the cause and sort of doing some sort of charity, not out of a sense of guilt, but out of a sense of compassion. But if we take that forward one step further, outside of our, immediate lives, into what's happening in the country, the people we need to reach out, and there are hundreds of causes, right? I've counted and done stories on everyone from the disabled that need our help, the migrant laborers, the children. There are children on the street, there are animals on the street. There are so many people in the country in various groups, various NGOs that we can reach out to. How important is it right now to feel part of the solution?
There are an equal number of us who are doing a lot of great things and a lot of good for all the people who need our help. And I applaud all of them who are doing that in whatever way. It is not really about money. It's not, money is important, but it's not only about money. There are so many different ways that you can be a part of this contribution. And as I said, it starts with compassion. If you just start feeling that, it'll slowly grow. First, start with the people that you are in touch with, the people in your home, your staff, people you like you said, make that list of the people that you could maybe help, whose livelihoods have been taken away, and you could be of help to.
I want to give you this great example. I was reading about it. It's in the Indian Express. So the Mumbai Film Producers Guild and the vendors who have vanity vans, which are obviously not being used right now because there's no shooting happening for the last month and a half. They've given these hundreds of vanity vans to the Mumbai police, so that police women and policemen who are out on duty have a place to sort of use the washroom, to sit down and have their lunch. It's really hot outside. And I was just thinking, you have to be really sensitive to be able to think of that solution, right? It's not about giving money. It's about having a resource you believe can solve a problem. And it's so true, especially for women who are out on duty, to have a clean bathroom or a clean washroom to use is life-saving. And I think that, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about. It comes from compassion. It comes from empathy. It's come from thinking, okay, I have this. What can I do with this in order to make someone else's job or duty slightly easier? It's such a beautiful solution. Yeah, it's beautiful because we all have skills, right? We all have gifts, and in some way we can maybe use those.
We all do something. We have blind spots. We just need to identify how we can be of use, and that only comes once the anxiety levels have gone, and you're feeling good about yourself, and you want to do. You're going from being in effect to being in cause, and then all these ideas will come to mind. In fact, the vanity van idea was something that I had suggested about a month back, and it has been action now, and I'm so happy that I could be of help.
You know what? Thank you. Because this is what I'm saying. It's easy to sort of put money, and that's important, and I'm not belittling that, but it's so important to think of solutions out of sensitivity and out of empathy for other human beings, and especially those who are out actually working at a time when we are staying home. I fell in love with that solution. I just thought it was so beautiful.
I agree.
So I want to ask you this. You a couple of times you've said being in cause. Would you explain to us what being in cause is?
Being in cause is something that I use very often with my kids, because whenever I see them reacting to something that throws them off, like in a situation like this, it can throw you into effect where you were just continuously asking questions about, what's going to happen, or why me, or why is this happening, why is that happening. That's a brain going into effect. You're just reacting. You're in a reactive state of mind. And the opposite of that is to say, okay, this is happening. What can I do to make myself feel better? And what can I do to help others feel better about themselves? What can I do to contribute? Now that switches the brain from being in effect to being in a mode of cause. And I think we all need to be that right now, because a lot of people are going to be in effect with no fault of theirs. The ones who can be in cause must be in cause. We must do our best, be alert, and take care of ourselves first, and then be in a state where we can help. uh, because if the people who can be of use go into effect, we're just going to be a community of people who are just asking questions and no one has the answers then.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the quick explanation of the term that I use so often. I'm sorry, I
No,
uh,
that's actually brilliant, because one of the things that I was dealing with, or I was just reading before we started this, is the fact that the numbers for India, while they're rising, there are also some silver linings. There are some positive things. So 1 in every 4 or 5 people who's tested positive has recovered completely. That's a
yes,
good statistic. Our hospitals are not overwhelmed. 80% of those testing positive are actually asymptomatic, which means they'll be fine. They're not going to, we don't have overwhelmed ERs. We don't have people dying like we're reading across the world. These are all very, very good things. What we will have is a lot of hungry people. What we will have is a lot of people out of work. What we will have is a lot of people, a lot of children whose development is going to be disrupted because no access to schools, because their parents don't have money, because they don't have access to proper nutrition. These are India problems that we're going to have to solve over a period of the next 2 years. So we will have to aid in that solution. So it makes sense to, while we stay home and continue to do our bit to control the numbers, we should be using this time to find solutions within our gifts
and it's
to,
great. It's great that you are seeding these thoughts, because the first step is to have awareness of that foresight, that these are the problems that we will have to deal with once we are through with this. So right now, I think is the time where this thought needs to be seeded. People need to start thinking, and I think human beings are meant to survive, and I think we will get through this eventually in the best way possible. And I think we will grow better as people, and I think we will have a better world. That's what I believe.
I think that's a belief we all have to hang on to. Hrithik, thank you so much for giving me time and for chatting with me.
And
And I know that I feel a lot better, and I hope that people who are watching also, sort of felt that pick me up from this
thank you,
conversation.
thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Love to the kids and love to the family.
I
We'll
shall
get
pass.
through.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.